that could have an unparalleled and unprecedented impact.
I've got a story to tell. Have you?
Backs. Mark, looking back now, what's one thing that you think you did really well in year one?
Well, I've had 5 year ones. I had a lot of experience of making mistakes in year ones, and so I made sure that this year one I was very intentional to take my time. And so I had a meeting. I got hired in October of 2023. I waited a month to do any kind of changes. So that first, like the end of November, we had our first meeting with all of our adult leaders. And at that point, I was praying through and creating kind of like a vision, our 1 year goal, our 5 year goal, and our 20 year goal, or whatever you want to call it. Just like these are some of the things that we want to get to. And then I asked their input. How do we get there? I asked them, what did the previous guy do well? What did he not do well? And what can I do to improve where we're at? And so I know communication was one of the big things that they mentioned that was not a strength. And so I've made sure to over communicate. Some of them also said they felt isolated. So like he had kind of an inner core that he talked to, and then all the other leaders were just kind of flying by the seat of their pants, and they would get an email every once in a while. And so I made sure that we included all of our leaders that could be at these meetings. We discussed everything that we could and made sure that I was valuing their time at these meetings, because once a month is a big commitment for a lot of people, and it's usually an hour and a half. So I intentionally made it to where we start at 3:30. At 5 o'clock, we have our youth Bible study on Sunday nights. So we can't go past an hour and a half. And I've got an agenda or an itinerary that we go through, and we make sure we hit everything. We spend like 30 minutes talking about the books that we use through SSM. And then we hit on topics that we need to discuss as far as the student ministry. So what are some things that are going well? What are some things we need to tweak? Plans that we have, how are our leaders doing, and just making sure that everyone is on the same page with everything that we're doing, so that if someone asks one of our leaders, well, what are we learning about next month? They've already got an idea of what we're doing, and there's no confusion and there's no complaints about, well, he's not telling us what we need to know.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think for me in year one, I think the thing that I noticed was, and I honestly, I did it for myself because I so didn't know what I was doing when I started at 20. I had kind of learned from this guy as his intern for a year, and then all of a sudden I was kind of running things when he left. And so where he could kind of go and do and whatever he wanted to do, and he just had this huge personality where he was very charismatic, and you just wanted to follow him. His name is Frank, or is Frank. He's still alive. But like, you just wanted to follow him. He just was, and I've never been the guy that, like, I'm not super charismatic. I'm not the guy that just has this big boisterous personality. I'm very like kind of level all the time. My highs aren't too high, my lows aren't too low. I've actually been turned down for jobs before because my personality assessment says that my highs are not high enough and my lows are not low enough, which seems really crazy, but people will dismiss you for any number of things. But basically they said that I was not charismatic enough for that job, and not like the charismatic we're thinking of, like Pentecostalism.
Yeah.
I'm just talking like they just thought I was just too, because my highs weren't high enough and my lows weren't low enough. I'm like, I think that speaks to more, like, that to me is more of a good thing in a leader than getting too high and getting too low. But that's just me, but that's just not what they wanted. But all that to say, what I think I stumbled into out of just needing the routine of knowing what my weeks looked like was consistency. The kind of same time, same place, same teaching, that rhythm kind of built a routine that I kind of stumbled into. And I didn't realize how much consistency really mattered. But in talking to students, because I was there for 6 years, and equivalent to my 6 years, the previous 6 years, there were 3 student pastors in 6 years. And then there was me. And so I knew 2 of those guys. So I was able to just kind of instinctively know some of the rhythms that they had. But I didn't realize how big consistency and stability was for all of that. But okay, let me ask you this. When, because I know it did, there had to have been a time where it shifted for you. When did your perspective shift from just getting short-term outcomes to the idea of long-term outcomes, kind of going from short-term to long-term faithfulness?
As far as myself, leaders?
Yeah, just in your ministry, like the stuff that you're trying to achieve. I think so that question, let me try to frame it better. When I first started, there was a lot of people wanted things to be done, right? And so thinking through 7 years ago when I started at Rosemont, there were a lot of changes people wanted to make. And so there were some short-term things that you can do, but that ends up just creating a lot of busyness. For instance, I talked about in the first half, kind of the big pitfall, the big shortfall that this guy had before me was the relational side. So kind of, well, short term, low hanging fruit, right? I'm just gonna schedule a bunch of fellowship opportunities. Well, I scheduled crazy amount of them. We didn't have kids at the time. I scheduled crazy amount of them. We were doing things multiple times a week, every week. I mean, it was nuts. But one of the things that I didn't realize was that was fixing something short term, but that wasn't going to be reproducible for me long term. And so I needed to shift my perspective from, and I do think there's a time that's appropriate to do some of that short-term stuff where you need an infusion. But as far as like just trying to move from seeing things as short-term solutions that need to be corrected to like, when do you shift your focus to say, okay, long-term faithfulness? That's the stuff that matters. That's the stuff that is going to ensure that my leaders feel loved, that my students feel valued. When did you start shifting your perspective?
I think and with coming with so much experience coming into this position, I kind of had a mindset that we were going to try to do both of them in tandem. And that again involves making sure that you and your leaders are on the same page. So trying to clarify everything. Like we definitely talked about what the strengths and the weaknesses were of the youth ministry. And I even had asked the students what their thoughts were. So there's like a SWOT analysis that you can do. And so we did that and talked to the students and made sure that we could identify some easy wins, like the low-hanging fruit, like you said, and work towards those. And then also talking with leaders, like, what do we want from our students after them being here for 7 years? And how do we begin implementing those things? So I'd say probably, year 2 would be the best time to start shifting from let's just get some easy wins to let's really start digging trenches and making sure that we're producing fruit. Because then people know you, they know your personality, they know what to expect. You've already built some meaningful relationships. You've got some sweat equity or whatever it's called to where people know that you're going to be faithful and know that you're going to stick around. And they don't have to worry about you leaving for the bigger, better job. And I know that's one thing personally I've always told people is that I'm going to be here as long as God allows me to be here. And I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. So even like my last church, I was there for 6.5 years, and it felt like it took God dragging me out of the church for me to leave and go somewhere else. Because you build those relationships and it's almost like family, but when it's time to go, it is time to go. But God sets you up for success if you're willing to listen and take everything that you've learned from your previous positions into where you're going. Because I don't think that any position is by accident. And I learned that probably the most when I came here is that everything that I have experienced in ministry and in life has set me up to do well in this situation because it's so unusual. And it takes patience. It takes listening and being willing to listen more than you talk and being willing to operate in your strengths and delegate to others and setting realistic goals. Like we're not going to change the world overnight, but what we can do is we can start building relationships with students to make them feel seen and then equipping them to go and to reach other students. And so one of my day one goals was to create a leadership team and to create a youth band. It took me over a year to get to that point. And it took me getting to know students and seeing who could actually step into that position. And so we wanted to do things immediately, and some of them we did, some of them failed. But we learned from that, and we're willing to push through and realize where we made a mistake and went through it. But
it's funny. I was talking to a former student of mine who's a youth pastor in Chattanooga. His name's Hunter Stonebreaker. He called me last week, and he was like, hey, man, I just want to throw this out there. He's been at this church for 3 years now. He was the high school and college guy. Now he's just the student ministry guy because they've grown so much that they hired a college person and he's doing this. And they asked him, do you want to do college or students? And he settled in. But one of the things that he is seeing is like his church kind of unique in the metro area of Chattanooga, being a church plant, a lot of young families, just some things. And he's really developing his personality, which is cool to see. Like he's not really tailoring it to anybody. He's kind of trying to build it around his skill set, his uniqueness, but also the unique culture that is his church. And so he kind of lays out this vision of student ministry to me. And it's not something I would want to do at all. Like, doesn't strike my fancy, doesn't get me excited. But like hearing him talk about it, he was jacked up. And it's going to be a pretty substantial, like it's a unique thing. And I told him, I'm like, look, everything that you're telling me, you need to document every part of this process because it's either going to be something that you learn from and other people are going to want to learn from it because they're going to want to do it, or it's going to be something that you don't want to make the same mistake. But I would tell you if you have the ability to try, because he's like, I just don't know if it's going to work. And I said, if you have the ability to try something and fail at it, would you rather try and fail at what you're passionate about, or would you rather try and fail at what other people expect of you?
Mm-hmm.
I think you would much rather try and fail at the thing that you feel like the Lord's calling you to do. And so he's going to do it. We'll see how it works. And I told him, I said, that might just be the stonebreaker method of student ministry. But I mean, he in doing so, like, he's playing the long game.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole, like, his whole system for what he's doing, like, it really only works if you're with him for more than 3 years. So I told him, you got some things you got to figure out. And I told him probably the best thing he could do, aside from talking to people and getting their advice, is turn on the voice memo feature on ChatGPT and say everything that he said to me. Like, just talk to ChatGPT like you're talking to me. Don't expect a response, but just give the vision. And then once it does that, once you do that, once you submit it, then say, okay, help me identify, where can I strengthen this? What are some pitfalls? What are some things that I need to plan for? And utilize it like it's an assistant for you. But, you know, I don't know. I just, when you were saying that, that's what it was making me think of, was I think we just need to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're passionate about, and that we're taking opportunities and chances that if we fail, we're going to fail at stuff we're passionate about.
Yeah.
What would you say helps you stay grounded? I mean, you've been doing this now for 15 years?
It's almost 20.
Almost 20. So
yeah.
What would you say helps you stay grounded?
I'll give you the Sunday school answer, Jesus, but
Yeah.
there's more to it than that. I know. And when I graduated from high school, I got saved when I was 17. So I was a senior in high school when I got saved. Came from a skeptical atheistic background. So for me to believe something, I have to find the evidence myself and be solid in it. But once I get to that point, nothing's ever going to change my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember standing on stage at our church at our graduation service, and they said, "What do you want to do when you graduate?" I said, "I want to be a college professor because I hate kids." And like, I kid you not, I tried to find the video of this, but they don't have video from 2004 because everything was VCR. But I remember saying that. And then my freshman year of college, I had the opportunity to lead a Bible study. Didn't really want to, but nobody else was going to do it. And then my sophomore year of college, like, God just did something else in my life. My junior year of college, I go to the main campus of South Carolina and become friends with a guy who feels called into ministry. And then God starts working in my mind, pushing me towards this. And I really did not want to do it. And then my wife and I got married in 2008. And at that point, God was like, "You're going to ministry, whether you like it or not." And so I talked to my previous youth pastor, and he said, "If you could find anything else and do it with joy, then do it. But if not, then pursue ministry." And I was angry at him when he said it because I thought he didn't believe in me. But after, 10, 15, 20 years of doing ministry, I 100% understand it, that it's not anything that I ever saw myself doing. I never wanted to be a minister. I never wanted to work in a church, at that age, I didn't even care about being in church because I didn't believe in God. But it's just seeing how God has worked and seeing how God has used me to help other students and like help families and those kind of things. It's 100% a God thing. And then, so I know that I'm not doing it in my own power, my own authority. I don't like standing in front of people and talking. I'm an introvert, whether people believe it or not. But I know that when I stand on stage, like, I have the opportunity to impact someone's eternity. And so I've got to take that seriously. And then having the opportunity to take the pain and the suffering and the trauma that I've dealt with as a student and as an adult, and being able to use that to minister to students and minister to families. Like, there's no joy like it. Outside of, getting married, having kids, getting saved, all that great stuff, but being able to give back through the pain that you've dealt with to help people. And then the other thing is my wife. She keeps me grounded. Whenever I get a big head, she's very quick to say, "Don't be stupid. You really need to think about this." Then having a couple friends that are in ministry that you can call and you can talk to, they can either back you off a cliff or they can, smack you down if they need to, just to make sure that you stay accountable and you stay humble. So really it's all of that combined.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. Let's land this plane. If you were, and I ask all pastors when I get together with them, I ask them this question. If you could go back and speak to yourself, knowing what you know in year 20, you go back to yourself in years 1 through 5, what would you tell yourself?
Talk less and listen more.
Yeah. I think for me, I would say that a couple things. One is, not every hill that you see is worth dying on. Not every hill you know, the hills, the longer I'm in it, the less hills I see that are worth my time. Like there are things where I can look at it and be like, man, year 1 through year 5, I would have planted my flag on that and I would have gone and tried to die a hero's death. But seeing it now, it's like, it's not even worth it. It's not even worth it. It's just a distraction from the mission. So I would say that, number one, not every hill's worth dying on. Matter of fact, there's very few. Number two, and this is something that I would say to somebody who's in year 20 as well. And this was, I was given this bit of advice from Dr. Bill Cook, who is a professor of New Testament interpretation at Southern Seminary. He and I had the opportunity. He and his wife came to Rosemont. He spoke on our Sunday morning service, and his wife spoke at dinner. And I got to take him out to dinner while his wife was speaking to our women. And I asked him that question. I said, if you go back, what do you tell yourself? And he said, I think I would tell myself, tell your kids more often that we go to church not because daddy's a pastor. We go to church because that's what we're supposed to do. We're Christians, and this is where we gather with God's people. And daddy happens to be a pastor, which means that we get to do that more than most. But it's important not just because daddy's a pastor. It's important because that's what we're supposed to do. And I can just remember sitting there thinking, well, that's not what I expected to hear, but it's true. And I think about that a lot. And I try to say that to people is, keep in mind, whether you're in year 1, whether you're in year 20 or year 40, you're not going to church because it's a paycheck. And the moments where you are going to church because it's just a paycheck, you need to reach out because it's far past time for some help. Anyway, well, Mark, man, thanks so much for joining us today and stepping in for Ian while he's in Dallas, trying to get people signed up to be a part of the network. And we will look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.